Charlotte's Web by E.B. White became and remains my favorite book ever since I rediscovered it as an adult many, many years ago. In my reading of it, the web was a metaphor. In the smallest sense, it was a metaphor for the barn where the whole book took place, and the barn was a metaphor for the whole world, in which sheep and pigs and geese and rats and spiders and humans managed to live together in and around a pile of manure in a barn cellar. Species that would typically either ignore or dominate or despise or disparage or maybe care about one another all live together in this world. They must do this. They must, because they are bound together in a web of belonging. In our first reading today, Jeremiah had been loudly warning the king and the people of Jerusalem in southern Judah that their practice of injustice against certain people, minority groups, was not only against God's rule and plan and promise for the world, but that it would lead to their own destruction. But the king liked and promoted these practices of injustice, and so tried to silence Jeremiah by imprisoning him in the mud at the bottom of a well. Eventually, Jeremiah was proven right. The Babylonians would invade southern Judah, destroy the temple, and exile the people to the far-off land of Babylon. All this because they did not heed Jeremiah's warning that they are bound together in a web of belonging with all people, all creation, even those they wish to ignore or dominate or despise or disparage. The psalm today provides hope to those who work to uphold God's rule and plan and promise, and that God will hear their cry and respond. You are my help and my deliverer, O my God, sings the psalmist. The second reading from the letter of Hebrews proclaims words of resilience and strength and endurance to all who work to uphold God's rule and plan and promise. It reminds us that we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. We stand beneath that cloud of witnesses that includes so many: Jeremiah, Dorothy Day, Martin Luther King Jr., Isaiah, Mary of Nazareth, John the Baptist, and so many more who dared to preach God's word, God's rule and promise, that we are bound together in a web of belonging with all people, even those we might choose to ignore or dominate or despise or disparage. To deny God's rule and plan and promise is to ring our own death knell. This becomes even more clear in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, when Jesus says that to deny this rule and plan of God's will not only result in our estrangement and separation from other peoples, but will cause division within our own family units. Mother against daughter, father against son. We have seen this, haven't we, in the wake of terrible polarization in our own country, Thanksgiving table with empty chairs. This morning, I heard a radio talk show called Living on Earth, maybe you did too, in which a botanist named Zoe Schlanger talked about termites. Not exactly spiders, but still. Termites were recently discovered to have microbes in their guts that make it possible for them to digest the chemicals in wood. So in other words, the most signature behavior of termites, wood eating, is made possible by entirely different organisms living within them. The termites' gut microbes, in turn, are able to function thanks to yet smaller microbes that live within them. Some termite ancestor likely got them by eating dead plant material where microbes were living, and from there, both evolved together, separate and together, into the versions of each that exist today. So many cascading individuals make one termite possible. Over and over, the thrust of these new discoveries points in the same direction. A termite is never just a termite. And the same is clearly true of every organism. We are so completely bound together in a web of belonging. Species and other species, tribes and other tribes, enemies and friends, one family member and another, self and other parts of self. To work against this is to ring our own death knell. That is the message Jesus is eager to spread. That is the ministry about which he says, "How great is my anguish until it is accomplished."